I'm Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist, here in my home in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, with my tea of the day for quarantine week. This is the TWG Weekend in Hong Kong tea with really nice rhubarb and berries. Be nice to be able to get back to Hong Kong once this is all over. Spend a weekend there. TWG, not a sponsor, I'm just a fan. But today I want to talk to you about what you need to survive a panic. Because obviously all around the world right now, you've got a panic over this coronavirus situation. And what I hear from folks time and time again is, I'm not afraid of the virus, I'm just afraid of the economic fallout. Stock market has dipped, gold, I mean, even historic safe havens have taken a hit. So I want to talk about some things that I think are useful, because one of the things that I've been saying throughout this entire coronavirus situation is that while we don't take pleasure in things like this happening, quite frankly, it's been surprising that more of these things haven't happened. We have had Ebola, we have had swine flu and bird flu and all those things, and those went less noticed. We have had economic downturns. I was doing business 11, 12 years ago through the Great Recession. But we seem to forget about those things, and we seem to get in this mode where I think a lot of people look at life as permanent. People make decisions and they imagine whatever's happening right now is the way it's always going to be. So if real estate's going up, they can't imagine real estate ever going down. If the stock market's hitting record highs, they can't imagine anything different. And they just get in that mindset. The same thing I see when I'm talking to people about moving overseas. It's hard for them to imagine that if they move to Thailand or here to Malaysia for a year, that they can decide a year later they don't like it and they can change their mind and go somewhere else. They feel it's permanent. And right now, a lot of people think that this is permanent. It's not. It will pass. We'll be stronger. We'll be better than ever. But these things will happen again. And what you've seen is there's been panics all around the world. Look at Cyprus. Look at the bail-ins of 7 years ago, 8 years ago, where the government just said, hey, we're in bad shape. Banks are in bad shape. You're restricted. It happened in Greece. Happened a lot of places. Okay? When countries have problems, when they have chaos, some bad things happen. And sometimes those things have long-term lingering effects that go beyond, hey, just my stocks were down for a while and then they rebounded later. So what do you need during a panic? The number one thing is cash. Not everyone has agreed with me on this in good times, but I'm a big believer in having liquidity, cash. Now that could be cash that's sitting around your house. That could be cash in a bank account somewhere, like in a sweep account, where you just have access to it, but you want to have cash both personally and as a business. I was talking to some business owners recently, been messaging a lot of folks, checking in on folks, what's going on, want to be supportive of people, if there's anything I can do to help, but also just, hear what's going on. And one thing I've heard from several business owners is, I'm having to lay off some people on my team because we don't have enough cash. Our team at Nomad Capitalist has grown from 4, about a year and a half ago, to over 20 people all over the world now. And as with any growing in our company, in any company, as someone who's not a native HR guru, we've brought on some people in that growth from 4 to 20 who weren't a good fit. And those folks had to go or chose to go. And so we've spent a lot of time refining our team to where now, we're pretty solid. We've got a really nice group of folks. There's no one I'm like, eh. So, after all that work, I don't want to let folks go. Especially, considering that we're hiring in countries where it's a little bit more affordable to hire, or a lot more affordable. And so because we have cash as a business, because we've got a very strong cash position, we can afford to keep the business running. Now, business happens to be, going well because people are seeing the opportunities. People who have prepared and who have cash and have assets to deploy are now coming and saying, hey, can I get my second passport by investing at a 20% discount? I've been looking for this, and now it's the time for me to deploy my cash. But having cash, obviously to keep food on the table, obviously to pay your bills. I think having some actual cold hard cash around your house, maybe even some gold, something like that, could be helpful. But definitely having cash for yourself and having cash in a business. I'm a big believer in liquidity. It may be suboptimal. You're not earning the same kind of return you would earn historically on an index fund or on rental real estate or whatever. But you know what? There are people right now. I'm looking at Turkey. I mentioned this the other day. Looking at buying a property in Istanbul. Finally identified the perfect property. Great deal. Getting an even better deal right now. Oh, except they're closing down the office that transfers titles. And so if you're the guy who's selling that property and you need that cash, that's not as good as cash. Okay? If the gold market's crazy and you can't liquidate your gold, that's not cash. Yeah, of course, cash is subject to inflation. Yes, interest rates right now you're not going to really make out well. Now, you can keep your money in one of the emerging world banks we talk about, and you probably could keep up with inflation in U.S. dollars in a few of these countries. If you go to Ecuador or Armenia or Cambodia, you might be able to keep pace with inflation and keep your safe haven currencies. But cash is really important. And I think this will be a good reminder for all the new entrepreneurs that have come into business over the last decade of prosperity. But really for everyone else, having cash is important because you never know what'll happen. You never know what will happen. And so for me, having bank accounts all around the world, one thing I've done is, made sure I get a debit card from most of them, not all of them, but from most of them, more of the transactional accounts. I'll go and open bank accounts in different places and say, give me a Visa card, and I'll make sure I move a couple $1,000s over onto that card. So, just yesterday, went and used an ATM card I'd never used before, took out some cash. It works. Now I've got access to cash separate from other countries' financial systems. Obviously, one thing you also want to have is you want to have food. What I like about here in Malaysia is I haven't seen the panic that a lot of people are talking about all around the world. People aren't panicking. I think that I'm hearing the same thing from folks in Serbia, Montenegro, Thailand, other places. That could be partially a cultural thing. Where people have seen stuff and they're like, let's just relax. Here it seems like the expats are the ones who are the most freaked out. It could also just be a thing of these countries, some of them haven't been as badly hit, and it's not Italy, and people aren't, facing, much worse situation. But obviously you want to have food in a panic. I've never been a big prepper, but I do think having some food around the house is not a bad idea. Again, you never know when this kind of stuff is going to hit you. What I also think you want to have is you want to have safe havens in your life. I've been talking about this. I talked about it in my book, Nomad Capitalist. We've been talking about it from day one of Nomad Capitalist. Having safe havens is important. No one country is best for anything, perhaps, let alone everything. So what are the things that you need in times of crisis? You need access to good health care. You're seeing right now that in times of panic, not only is the media overreacting and sensationalizing some things perhaps they're not, but some things they are. But you're seeing that the healthcare systems in some of these countries that were called the best and the brightest are not. In the United States, they're freaked out. We're not going to have enough healthcare infrastructure. In Western Europe, for sure, how's that free healthcare working for you? Where they're literally leaving people for dead in some places. My father and I, talk about fun conversations with your teenagers, we were talking about this. I remember walking around our neighborhood, and this was a prediction that someday, you would have an aging population in some countries. You would have free health care that couldn't keep up. You would have people who would rely on the government for everything. And there would come a time when it's like, we can't take care of all of you, so you're going to die. If you look at most of the people who have died from this coronavirus, it's folks who have these pre-existing conditions or who are quite elderly. So if you have access to good health care, one thing I think is having a safe haven. Malaysia has some of the best health care, well-trained doctors who went to some of the best places, the best schools, and can take care of folks. Obviously, not all of the countries that we talk about here have the world's best healthcare. My parents said, "Hey, should we move to Georgia?" Healthcare there is not terrible. You can certainly go to Istanbul, Dubai, what have you. But in chaos, is that where you want to be? Now they've done a good job with it, and they've mitigated their cases, and it's been a very good thing. But you want access to good healthcare, and I think understanding the healthcare environment that you live in. Obviously you want good health care when times are good and just you get sick or you need a surgery or whatever. But to me, good health care is, what happens when something bad happens? What happens when there is chaos? Will you be able to get the same health care? And so I think access to good health care is the same thing, or is an important thing. Quite frankly, I don't think having some kind of a residence permit in a country like Malaysia that requires you to have health insurance would be a bad thing to do. I've got a health insurance policy here that covers a lot of stuff. Cancer, disease, certain emergency care in times like this, I'm paying $400 a year. I'm 35 years old, and I'm paying $400 a year US for that. You would pay more than $400 a month in the United States and in other countries as well for that kind of care. So access to good health care. Now, in a panic, obviously, you're not going to fly from the United States to Malaysia to, get treated for the coronavirus. But access to good health care, whatever that means to you, I think is really important. Safe haven for your assets. Again, if you're keeping cash, what happens if one country declares a state of emergency and that extends to the financial system? Or what if you see banks that have exposure to certain parts of the market? In the Great Recession in the U.S., you saw hundreds of bank failures. Not so many outside of the U.S., but hundreds in the United States. So how are you protected? For me, preparing for a panic financially is important. And so that means not having all your eggs in one basket. Also, having a safe haven to live. One of the things that people often come to us for, from young entrepreneurs up to ultra high net worth individuals, is they say, Andrew, I feel like you specialize in these countries that not many people are talking about, that are off the radar, the hidden gems. And yeah, that's right. If you have a home in one of my hidden gems, if you lived in Georgia, if you lived in Montenegro, here in Malaysia, Colombia, if you had a home in these places have not been affected as much. Now, maybe one time there's a panic and it affects Colombia or something, but quite frankly, I'm seeing a lot more panics in the Western world these days. You see political protests everywhere, but when it comes to chaos and panic, I'm seeing that mostly in the West. I don't see too much chaos and panic here in Malaysia or in Colombia or in Georgia, whatever. Having a safe haven to live, to me, is important. That could mean a residence permit, could be a citizenship there, could just be a home there that you can go to. And if you see storm clouds coming, you've got a safe place to go. That could also tie in with food, by the way, where, in Georgia, for example, you've got over 3,000 rivers with pretty fresh water. You've got lots of natural resources. You've got arable land. That could be a great place to live. Now, again, I'm not a doomsday kind of person, but I can tell you, I have friends in Georgia who lived there during the 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed, and they said, thank goodness we had some land, we could grow some beans, we could grow food, we could feed ourselves for this time when things were not good. We never thought the world was ending, but we thought right now times are not good and we have to take care of ourselves. So having a safe haven to live is important. Having a safe haven for your assets as well as for your health care is important. There's ways you can use strategies like second residence and foreign real estate to do that. Lastly, you need a couple things. You need a portable income. That could be investments all around the world that churn off yield, that pay you, and or a business you can take anywhere. If your income, and I don't care if you're a factory worker or a multimillionaire, I got a couple folks in the last year who have multi-seven-figure incomes. They've hired us, and they got to be at the office every day. And they're under restrictions, and they're worried what's going to go on. Now, they've got a better opportunity to have stockpiled cash, and I think all of them have. So, they're not necessarily hurting, but they're worried. And they're worried, how am I going to get income, right? Because it gets scary when you have to, for me, when I sold my last business in the United States in 2013, it was technically the third business, or second or third, depending on how you look at it, that I'd exited. I had a bunch of cash sitting around. I didn't have to work for a while. But after about a month of sitting around and just writing early blogs for Nomad Capitalist, I got bothered because I like to live off of my income, not off of just chewing away at my principal. And so having a mobile income that you can earn from anywhere is important. I don't care who you are. Again, it could be investment income. It could be a job. It could be a business. When I was vacationing in Myanmar, if I had my laptop, I could have run Nomad Capitalist from there. Now I'm back here, I can do it. And so I can go and I can escape the panic. Having a portable income is very important. And I think that applies to everyone. Lastly, patience and a strong stomach. I'm going to keep repeating this, the old mantra of be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. People have been greedy for a long time. Now, I'm not one of these guys who says, sit around and on the sidelines and don't do any deals because the economy is good. I was buying stocks a couple months ago. I'm buying stocks now. I'm buying a lot of stocks. I'm moving money into foreign currencies. And it takes a strong stomach to do that when you see these potential falling knives. But patience is important. Having a long-term perspective is important. If you have that, it'll help you survive any chaos, any panic, because chaos and panic don't last forever. Unless you are 80 years old, you're going to be able to go out and your business will come back. I don't think your business has to suffer right now, by the way. I think there's things that you can do if you follow all these steps, if you are marketing digitally, if you're dealing with people remotely, if you are portable. I think you can still thrive right now. People want to do business. But even that aside, having patience, that things will come back. And when they come back, they'll come back very strongly. And you're going to have more business than you had before because people will have a pent-up demand. But to do that, you have to have a strong stomach. And if you want to do the stuff we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist, you have to have a strong stomach. Now you got a lot of assets all around the world that are on sale, whether it's equities, whether it's real estate, whether it's foreign currencies you can put in the bank and get a residence permit. You can get a lot of stuff done right now at a deal. But it's not comfortable to buy when there's chaos. It's not comfortable because you always think, what if it goes lower, right? When things are good, you say, well, I better hurry up and buy, even if it's an inflated price, because it just keeps going up. It'll go higher eventually, and that's not always how it works. But yet, we never really follow the mantra going both ways. If you have a strong stomach right now, you can get some good deals. Maybe things will dip a little bit more, but they will eventually, I think, if they are good systemic deals, they will come back. And so if you maintain a strong stomach through a panic, I think you'll be fine. Have the cash to survive, have food to survive, good health care, being outside of the chaos. I've stopped reading the news for the most part, by the way. We get it. Wash your hands, stay inside. I'm inside this week. It's why we're doing quarantine week. I welcome your suggestions in the comments. Practice, good hygiene. Practice common sense. Let's all, take a step back right now. Run everything from inside. Keep our businesses running from the house. And things will turn around. If you have your safe havens, if you have your cash, if you have food and you can survive, then having a strong stomach, having patience, to me, that's really important to survive a panic. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.